going to have a really good session today all about midterm rentals and insurance claims. We have a special guest on today, so it's really exciting.
So that's great if they're getting the replay. We knew that there was not going to be any time that worked for everybody. We are super glad to have everybody here. And I think we should just go ahead and jump in because we have a very packed agenda and we want to get to everything and we want to leave ample time for questions and answers. So I'll go over a couple of things real quick. Let me first of all introduce our speakers. I'm Bonnie Lowe. I'm a real estate investor. I happen to be a host with a cabin in Lake Lure, North Carolina, which thankfully was not damaged during the hurricane, but I was there during the hurricane, and so I saw firsthand the devastation to the area, and really just wanted to be able to offer some support in some way. And because I'm in a lot of local groups, I have seen again and again a mismatch between supply and demand relative to the hurricane response. There are a lot of people, obviously, who are needing housing, and there are a lot of hosts who want to offer their housing, but they're not quite sure how to do it under the circumstances. A lot of times it's short-term rental vacation hosts who are used to fairly simple automated process, like using Airbnb's platform, for example, and really are not certain how to go about pivoting to midterm rentals where you want to put a little more protections in place, and it's probably a little more manual process for a lot of people. Um, and so just seeing that and also seeing people saying, I'm desperately seeking for seeking housing, even if it's a 2 or 3 hour drive, just realizing that there was a gap between that supply and demand. And so I reached out to a couple of my favorite colleagues here and said, I think that we can help in some way by pulling this webinar together. That's what we've got for you today. I'm the host of the MTR Connect, which is a weekly virtual meetup for midterm rental. And we do a lot of direct support for one another, problem solving, troubleshooting, sharing resources. So doing this kind of meeting today is what we do anyway. We just decided to expand the format and open it up to help more people. We've got Shona Lepis here. She is the host of the She's Got Assets podcast, which is super exciting. Recommend you check that out if you're interested in midterms. She's also a very seasoned midterm host herself and a specialist in the insurance placement arena, which is very much relevant to what we're going to talk about here today. Then I've got Jon Wolf as well. Jon is a friend and colleague of mine. He's the founder of MiniStays, which is a platform for midterm rentals. And I wanted to share with you what he is doing. I love his company and what they're doing. And not only do they have a great product out there for you to list your property, and that's the number one question I'm getting from people is, where do I list a midterm rental? He also has a nonprofit arm of his company that is supporting the hurricane relief. Very relevant to what we're doing and all of the things that people are dealing with, boots on the ground. So I asked Jon to join us today as well, and we'll hear from him and see a little demo of what they're working on. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Shona's the meeting owner, and so she's got the ultimate control of cameras and slides and phones. I'll be speaking first, and I know she's going to monitor the chat while speaking. I will monitor the chat while she's speaking, but we're going to everybody hold questions for later on so that we can do a Q&A session towards the end. The last half hour will be Q&A. But if you have a question and you're not going to be able to be here in the latter half of the meeting, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll try to pick up that question. We'll get a replay of this event so that you get all the material. And if you have to leave for some reason, you'll be able to listen to the recording later on as well. And so then that's where we'll answer your questions in the chat if we're not able to do it live. Somebody is saying your volume is going in and out.
And just a quick reminder, if you have questions, just type them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. We want to make sure we can get through all the content. But please post your questions as you think of them so you don't forget.
Yeah, and feel free to use the reactions emojis as we're speaking. We always love to get feedback. You can do thumbs up, you can do a heart, you can do celebration, whatever. It's really nice for speakers to get feedback So I really encourage that you be interactive during this. So I'm going to cover just real quick what is a midterm or medium term rental. They're the same thing. Some people say midterm, some people say medium, some say MTR. But the bottom line is it's a hybrid between long term and short term rentals, but they're always furnished and they typically are going to be 30 plus day stays. That's not a hard and fast rule, but just think of them as longer than your typical 1 to 2 week short-term vacation rental. And one of the reasons we call out 30 plus day stays is that in some jurisdictions, they do have very specific rules once you get above 30-day stays, and your insurance company might as well. And so that's why we call out 30 plus day stays specifically. In most situations, and there are going to be some things that we talk about here today, and I'll try to call them out. I'll try to remind myself to call them out. I'm so used to talking about midterm rentals in general, and I really want to tailor this conversation specifically to the disaster relief experience. But this last bullet point here, usually more of a hospitality experience, is really key in MTR. When you have a long term rental, you're just pretty much renting it out, it's empty and people are turning it into their own home. They don't expect any hospitality type service from the host in most cases, whereas the short term rental is all about the hospitality experience. Midterms are a little different because typically people are going to expect more of the hospitality experience. They're looking for the nicer amenities, of course, furnished property. They may be looking for the supplies that you would normally stock in your house, and we'll talk about what those are. They're going to want recommendations for your favorite coffee shop and restaurants and those types of things you would typically associate with hosting a short-term rental. I think if you can provide that under the circumstances, all of that is great. And if you're already an STR host, you're set up to do that. So no problem. But because this is a disaster response and people are first and foremost looking for shelter, I would say that if you're looking to get up and running quickly, the hospitality experience is less important under the circumstances, but typically would be a key feature of hosting a midterm. What type of property is suitable for an MTR? Under the circumstances, almost any type of furnished housing. Furnishing is really critical right now relative to the disaster response because so many people have either lost their properties entirely or they've had extreme damage to their belongings, so they don't have anything to move into a property, even if they know they're going to need to pay for months, 9 months, or longer. And I personally have friends in the area who their home is not necessarily damaged, but they can't really get to it. And they certainly can't get to it in a way that they could move some of their belongings to a new property. They're literally looking to move into something with more or less the clothes on their back or what they had packed in their car when they left. Being furnished is really key. And I point that out specifically because I know we have some folks who are typically long-term homes who have had questions about wanting to transition their long-term unfurnished rental to a midterm, and it's going to be critical in most cases that you provide the furnishing, the bedding, the linen, etc.
Hey, Bonnie, I'll just chime in for a
Uh-huh.
second. A lot of insurance companies will actually provide furnishing, so you definitely does not need to. And that's ideal, but they will provide that if necessary. So just a side note there.
And I'll let you go into more detail on that when you get into your slides on the insurance placement situation, but I think that's a great call out. Location. Hopefully, we've got some folks from a broad area. I can't see where everybody's from right now, but I can tell you personally that when I left my cabin, it took a couple of days to get out of my cabin because of the fallen trees. We couldn't get through the road. I had to drive all the way down to Sumter, South Carolina, even to find a hotel room in a city that had power. Don't worry if you're seeing this and feeling like this webinar is really geared towards Western North Carolina. It was originally, we've expanded that particularly as Hurricane Milton came in right on the heels of Hurricane Helene. Principles still apply. A swath of damage from this hurricane was so enormous that people are going 2, 3 hours away just to find housing and trying to work remote or doing whatever they need to do in the meantime. Where within that radius from the affected areas. Thank you for joining this. Thank you for wanting to offer your property for disaster assistance. It's definitely needed. All right. Yeah, go ahead and and be pet friendly if you can. We're going to talk more about being pet friendly, but and I know Shona will cover this in her portion as well. Midterm rental easily 50% of your standard midterm rentals, not really
Hey, Bonnie,
affordable.
you're still cutting out. Maybe get a little closer to the mic. Sorry, it's just going out a little bit if you can.
Okay, I'll put it up here on my keyboard and
Okay.
hopefully it won't accidentally press any keys. Hopefully that's better. I'll try to also not move too much. Pet friendly is key, particularly under the circumstances people were evacuating with their pets. And so, if you have the ability to make your property pet friendly, I highly recommend it. We can talk a little bit in the Q&A. I know always questions about that. I'm worried about damage and so forth. So before we get too far into this, I do want to
Hey,
talk about.
Bonnie, sorry, you're still it's cutting out. Can you just maybe hold the mic? Sorry. Thank you.
So here's my mic.
Okay.
One thing,
Yeah,
they
maybe just hold it.
occupy.
Or can you take the mic out and just use your computer mic? Or
I can sure try if that helps. It might take a second to recognize it. Hang on. All right, are you guys hearing me at all now?
We
yeah.
can hear you. Yeah, you just tend to cut out a lot, so it's a little tricky, but yeah.
Okay, I can't hear you as well, but that's okay. All right, I'll try to get close to my computer mic. I think that we're in a difficult time as hosts. In the case of short-term rental hosts, if you're like me, most of your bookings have canceled or been canceled by Airbnb, if not the guests themselves, and you may have a property that's sitting empty. You may be new to this space. You want to help out, but there are a lot of questions that are causing hesitancy, and that's totally understandable. So I want to talk about those. I'm hearing from people, I'm really confused. I don't know how to do this. I normally work with a property management company, or I've only done long-term rentals, or I've only done short-term rentals. I know I should have a lease. I don't know how to go about that. We're going to cover all of that for you to demystify it and make it a little bit easier process. People are understandably concerned about the wear and tear on their property that comes with longer stays. That's a legitimate concern, and there are some things you can do to try to mitigate that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. I know that there's a lot of people who are saying, I have this mortgage that I have to pay on my property, and I want to help out when people are suffering, but I also feel guilty making any money on my property right now. I want to be able to offer it for free. And that's something Shona and I have talked about quite a bit. There's this guilt around charging a fee in the midst of a disaster. But I think it's important to remember that, while we certainly are not recommending that you use a dynamic pricing tool that's going to jack up your rates during this time, be sensitive to what your overhead is and your carrying costs on your property, because at the end of the day, you need to be made whole. And we want to make sure that your property is still there in the long run, because chances are it's what's bringing people to the area. It's providing housing, it's providing vacation stays, it's attracting tourists to the area. And all of those things are going to be incredibly important during the recovery efforts for all of these communities. If that helps put your mind at ease a little bit, it's okay to be covering your costs right now. It's okay to have a little bit of profit built in as well. You have to make the decision that is right for you. And if you want to, offer steep discounts right now, and you can, I know that is tremendously welcome. Some of the agencies that are taking on clients to offer their housing right now are putting in a cap for how much you can charge. And if that works for you, that's great as well. We just want to make all of those options available for you, and just put your mind at ease about the role that you can be playing right now. No matter what you're doing, you are supporting this what's happening on the ground, and that's really needed right now. You might not know how much to charge. We'll talk a little bit about that as well, how we go about doing that. And we're available to help you figure that out as well. I know personally, you'll see my contact information at the end of this, and Shona will have hers up, and Jon will have his up. And I think I speak for all of us that we can help you figure that out. I'm being asked to offer discounts, but I'm already offering it at my break even point. That's real and legitimate. And I know I've had that conversation a few times. I was just 5 minutes before this webinar started, reached out to buy a disaster response company that wants to rent my cabin. And I said, here's what I need to make for my monthly to cover my monthly costs. And I was very honest with them and broke it down, utilities and mortgage insurance, et cetera, and let them know that it represented like 30% off my nightly rate. And they were totally satisfied with that. So there's a way to have that conversation with empathy and understanding and elicit the same from the folks that are inquiring as well. And I think there's a little bit of survivor's guilt going on. I certainly feel that when I look around my community and see the incredible damage to Bat Cave and Chimney Rock and Asheville and Flora itself. My cabin's in pretty good shape, and there's a little bit of guilt around that. I'm like chomping at the bit, ready to get my property rented out. But I'm mostly wanting to rent it out for somebody who is either a relief worker coming into the area or a family that's displaced. And at the end of the day, I've had some later bookings, like my late November, December bookings are checking in saying, hey, should we still come or should we cancel? And I've said, please still come, unless I have it rented for a longer stay to a displaced family. Please come because your tourist dollars are going to be needed to support the restaurants and the small businesses and all of the people who are trying to, get their jobs back, get their life back in order. It's a blessing and a curse to be the last man standing in some areas, but know that your property and your support is really needed at this time. All right, Shona, go ahead. Okay. I love midterm rentals. I have long-term rentals. I have one short-term rental and I have some midterm rentals. And I got to be honest, my midterm rental is or my midterms are my favorite. I love that they're longer stays and less turnover. For me on my midterm rentals, I happen to manage the turnovers myself. So that's when a guest leaves and then you reset the property for the next one. Mine are local to me, or at least they have been. I'm actually in the process of relocating, so they will no longer be local and I won't be able to do those turnovers myself. But generally speaking, I've had a lot of traveling medical professionals in my midterm rental. They typically stay for their contracts are 13 weeks. So I either get them for 13 weeks at a time, which would be 4 different contracts during the course of the year, or they extend. I don't know why, but I have a lot of people extend in our particular area. And so only having to reset my property 4 times a year as opposed to a short-term rental that could be every weekend or every few days. I love it. And I find that they take exceptional care of the property. These are working professionals and they also tend to be working during the day. They're not necessarily staying in the house 24/7 and causing a lot of wear and tear. You can and you should thoroughly vet the tenant before saying yes. And I have to say, I'm going to recommend that now, even under the circumstances. I know you have a lot of people who are, life is pretty chaotic for them right now, but it's still very easy to do the background check. As part of that background check, you can verify their income. And this gives you some peace of mind that the property is your rents are going to be paid on time. It's never 100% guaranteed, but generally speaking, in the midterm realm, we don't have a lot of problems with it. And I think it is because we tend to do a very good job of vetting the tenants. Some people go so far as to ask for an application. That's one way you can mitigate any concerns about somebody staying at your property and not paying. Um, have a phone conversation with them. You might even check in with some prior landlords that they have rented from just to verify that they've taken good care of it. And all of those things help mitigate it. Your lease agreement, we're going to show you how to put a lease in place. It does establish the rules and expectations. This also provides you with a contract. Your lease with them is a contract, and it makes it very clear. This is when rent is due. The time period is from this date to this date. This is my late fee policy. This is my smoking or non-smoking policy. These are the things you're responsible for, taking garbage cans to the curb. That document set is really important should you, God forbid, ever find yourself in a situation where you have somebody who doesn't agree to leave when they were supposed to. You're going to need that lease agreement should you need to start an eviction, or even have law enforcement come and assist you with removing somebody from the property. Without that lease agreement, you're leaving a lot to chance, in my opinion. So strongly recommend that you do that. And it's just a safeguard for you and for them. And they're very easy to do. You have the possibility of lease extensions. I mentioned this before. It's pretty common in the MTR space to have people extend, and I know Shona will cover that as well. Very common with insurance placements because oftentimes they rent for a shorter period up front. And then as construction happens or repairs happen at their property, it may cause them to need to extend. And they usually will extend unless it's just been a horrible experience for them or for you, because it's a lot easier than finding a new property and relocating. So that's one of the benefits of having an MTR. You should be collecting a security deposit that provides you added peace of mind. It also helps give you a little bit of cover should their contract end abruptly. There are a few other things you can do relative to that as well. Depending on how you set things up, you may choose to have the tenant pay utilities. I know for myself, if somebody's lease is less than 6 months or less, I pay the utilities. If it's over 6 months, I ask them to put the utilities in their name. That's really up to you to decide how you want to do that. You can do it either way. What I have started to do in my leases now, though, is I will say I am paying the utilities up to a certain amount. I would put a cap on it. Let's just say $100. If the utility bill is more than $100, I will I will charge you for the overage. And this is because occasionally you do have the tenant who runs the AC on high and leaves all of the windows and the doors open. That's a no-win situation. But if you have any kind of track record with renting out your property, you probably have a good idea what your utilities cost, and you can set that cap at something that is reasonable. Goal is not to upcharge them for the utilities, but rather to just make sure that you are covered. This does work with the short-term model for a hybrid strategy. And in fact, a lot of people do that on an ongoing basis. They do both MTR and STR. Sometimes you'll find people who are in areas that attract a lot of snowbirds, for example. They may do short-term throughout their busy vacation season, and then they switch to a midterm model maybe in the dead of winter when they get a lot of people who want to relocate to get out of the colder climate, for example. Um, that can work really well in almost any environment. It's just a little trickier to manage your calendar for that. And then, of course, you can tap into it for higher guaranteed income. The insurance placement realm is very different, and I'm not going to try to go over it here. But it's definitely something you want to be able to position yourself for. And if you have a furnished rental and you have the ability to do 30 plus days, definitely going to want to understand how insurance placements work and why they work the way. And that. All right, go ahead. All right, so where do I start? Make sure your property is ready. So I do not recommend that you throw your property out there on different sites, Furnished Finder, for example, or Airbnb if you're not ready. Sorry, about the volume. I'm not sure I can do
Yeah,
anything.
maybe just hold it again. It's cutting out again. It was really solid and it started cutting out.
Yeah, I use the same thing every week. And look, back to the- There,
That sounds solid.
I'll just put it a little bit. I recommend that you have it furnished already before you start advertising it. People are going to want to see what it looks like and think to themselves, is this going to work for me and my family? Is this going to be comfortable? What should I expect? It should really be turnkey, in my opinion, or very close to turnkey by the time you offer it. The other issue is that, especially right now, people are going to want to move in very quickly. So you want to make sure that it's ready so that they can research for local permit requirements is part of being ready. You don't want to get somebody in there and then find out later that it's not really allowed or that they're restricting.
Hey, Bonnie, you're cutting out again. Sorry, maybe.
Don't know what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got it up at full volume and you know what? Shona, you could take it over if you want.
No,
Have you tried
no.
disconnecting your mic?
I've connected and disconnected the whole.
Can you just hold it? Just hold it in front of you. Is that
I
what
am
you-
holding it.
Okay, right to your mouth though, maybe just really close.
Yeah, I don't.
Now we lost you.
You hear me?
Yeah, you cut out though. It's okay. Let's just, yeah. All right. Let's just keep going. Hopefully it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it worked the best when you disconnected.
All right. Let's try.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay. So that's what we're going to go with. I'm not going to keep monkeying around with it. If it doesn't work, then Shona, you'll just have to take it over because I want people to be able to hear it.
No,
This
no,
sounds a lot
that's
better.
a lot better. That's really solid. So let's,
Okay. We'll give it a try. Make sure your homeowner's insurance covers midterm rentals as well. And make sure your HOA is okay with it if you're in an HOA. You may find nothing written that specifically addresses 30-day stays. They almost always will address short-term stays and define what a short-term stay is, but don't be surprised if there's nothing specific spelling out a midterm stay being approved. And that's when you want to get on the phone and talk to either your local planning department or your HOA just to make sure that it's allowed. Same thing, give your homeowner's insurance a call. I know I have State Farm, and so long as the property is consistently occupied, my typical homeowner's insurance will cover midterm stays. You do need to shift more of a short-term policy, or put some umbrella or riders in place with some insurance companies. They're all different though. If you're anticipating gaps in occupancy, because it is so very different depending on the insurance carrier that you have, you need to give them a call and let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it and the occupancy expectancy to make sure that you've got the right coverage in place. You do need to fully furnish it, and I strongly recommend that you include all of the linens and the towels, especially. And I'm calling this out because I know, particularly on the East Coast, it is still fairly common for people to offer short term rentals and not include linens. And under the circumstance, I always think it's odd personally, the idea of traveling with towels and sheets and things like that, but I guess people do. But under the circumstances, you're in a situation where people probably don't have those items and or maybe not in the best economic situation to go out and be purchasing them. Please have a fully outfitted. Be generous with what you put inside your property to make it a comfortable experience. For example, if you sleep 4, I would not recommend that you have only 4 plates and 4 knives and 4 forks. Add a little bit so they're not having to walk constantly for every meal. Those are just things to think about to make the day comfortable and welcoming and inviting. I always put a first aid kit, and I know that this come up time and time again. You've probably seen stories in the news where people were injured and they were able to go to their first aid kit for just real basic supplies to get by until they could have help. And so hopefully nothing like this happens again, but we never expected it to happen in the first place. So it's not a bad idea to, put an inexpensive first aid kit in your property. Somebody's asking how many bedding per bed is recommended per room. I always personally have two, one on the beds and one in the linen closet. That's just personally how I do it so that they can do a quick change if they need to. Don't forget your safety equipment. Again, this has been so highlighted. You at least want to have flashlights, batteries, and a fire extinguisher. And in fact, your homeowner's insurance may require that you have fire extinguishers, smoke detector, carbon monoxide, radon here in an area where radon is a big concern. Start it with starter products. This is one of those things that I feel is more controversial than it should be. Outfit it with shampoo, hand soap, body wash, dish soap, dishwasher detergent. It doesn't have to be a lot, but at least enough so that they can take a shower the first night they get there. They can wash the dishes if they have to. They've got some toilet paper. They don't have to run to the store before they come to your property. Those should all be figured into your bottom line and your expenses. Personally, I have shampoo, conditioner, body wash, shaving cream in all of my bathrooms, hand soap, all of those things. For toilet paper, I put 4 rolls out in every bathroom as a starter. And for dishwasher pods, I put 5 of the dishwasher pods just to get them started so they can do a few loads. And I always have a small bottle of laundry detergent available as well if you have a washer dryer at your place. You're going to want to create a guest manual. There are online versions that you can create. I know that Gatsby has one. You can do it through Canva. There's all sorts of sources that you can use to create a digital guest manual. They're very handy. Some people prefer them, but I can tell you that when your internet goes out and your cell service goes out and your guests can no longer access the manual and they've forgotten what the door code is and the only place it's posted is in the manual, you're going to wish that you had a written out copy, an old fashioned 3-ring bind guest manual. I really recommend that you do both. This was just really underscored for people during the recent disaster where internet was down for days and days. There was just no way to access that information. We want to establish a process for handling maintenance requests. Now, a lot of the software programs that people use, Inago is one of them. Owner Res is another. Hospitable. There's a bunch of them that people use. You have maintenance requests. I think of Dale.co is another one that has a process for handling maintenance requests, or it can be just simply that you're spelling out in your guest manual and you're explaining to your guest, hey, text me, or here is my handyman's text number. Some way that you can keep track of those maintenance requests is going to be important, and set that up before it's needed. The last thing you want is a guest in the middle of the night who has something happening, like the fire alarm's going off and they don't know how to reset it. And they have no idea how to get a hold of you and what the process is supposed to be. So just make it very clear and spell it out from the beginning. We're going to talk about some of the sites where you can post property, take photos. Really, professional photos are best. I know you may be scrambling to get your property up and running right now, and you don't have time to book a professional photographer. I don't recommend that you use a real estate photographer per se. Most of us are transitioning to folks who specialize in Airbnb type professional photos just because they show the property a little differently. And that's become the gold bar or the standard for your property to stand out on the places that you listed. Lighting is really key. I see a lot of people closing all of the blinds, the shades, and everything Probably because their cameras are causing glare, but if you use a professional, they're going to set up like photo rings and whatnot, so the lighting is perfect. You want to show it as lit as possible so people understand the space and it feels welcoming and inviting. Set up your utilities. They thought of everything. Electricity is the obvious one, but don't forget about water, Wi-Fi collection. For a lot of people in midterm rentals, they're offering Wi-Fi or a streaming service, but we're not necessarily subscribing to like a full cable package or paying for a subscription to Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever. We're just using a TV. We're making streaming available, and then because they're moving around all the time, they probably have their own account for each of that they like to watch. And so they're going to be able to download their accounts onto your smart TV so that they can watch from their own subscription. But you want to explain all of that. Mailbox or no mailbox. I feel like this is a 50-50 thing. Some people are adamant absolutely should not allow people to get mail. It provides water's rights. I've heard different explanations of this. I don't think that it does convey squatters' rights per se, but I have seen in some Shona, you have some experience with this because I've seen it on the West Coast more than anywhere else, where squatters will say that they got to their name at your property, and they'll use that to at least temporarily convince authorities that they have the right to be in the property. You still have to go through the property proving that they don't have a right to be in the property, but seems like if they're allowed to receive mail, the concern is that it's a little bit easier for them to prove that. I think highly jurisdictional dependent, but personally, I don't let them get mail at my property simply because when you're turning them over every few months, you will be getting their mail for a long time, even if they're really good about changing it when they open. And then your next tenant is going to deal with that older tenant on there. I tell them no, they need to get a PO box or nowadays start using mail digitally through a mail. But just know that they probably still have like Amazon and DoorDash delivered to your property, and that is much more difficult than just saying no, you have a mailbox. I tend to turn a blind eye on the Amazon deliveries and the DoorDash and things like that. Away from that, but it's really a decision for you. Go ahead.
I'm just going to chime in. I think it comes down to screening. If you screen them and they're well qualified, there's not going to be any issues like that, and that's the key, I think, in that whole
Yeah, definitely on preventing squatters, absolutely 100%. It is a pain to deal with somebody else's mail when they move out, and even if you go to the post office and put your mail forwarding week before that actually, just be prepared. Maybe warn them that might be an issue where they're getting external. All right, these are some of the more common places where you can list your property. You're going to get the replay and you'll see these slides, and so don't worry about writing all of these down right now. But the Furnished Finder, the big one in the midterm realm, they have still branding themselves the number one travel nurse website, but believe me, more than travel nurses, I personally use it. And they even, according to their own now, more than 50% of their renters are not travel nurses. Very broad usage on Finder. It's not a static fallback. It's a lead generation funnel only. But what they can do is tell you that they're interested in your property or that their profile matches your property, and then you have to follow up with them and you can create the lead and you collect the payment. Of course, field generation website. Whereas Airbnb, Vrbo, those that we're familiar with, those are actual bookings. Not only there, they can book it without even knowing about it if you have approval or payment come through the platform. Airbnb has a nonprofit arm of their company, which is Airbnb.org. This is why I have it listed separately here. We have Airbnb.org and Airbnb.com. Airbnb.org is asking people to list their property with them because they have the ability to pay some of their platform fees, and they are driving people to Airbnb.org for the disaster response. So, already on Airbnb, on connecting with Airbnb.org. So, been around a long. They are also now in the 30+ days. MiniStays, the Scones company, we're going to talk all about them. So, I don't know what believe it. Most about it. When you're looking to buy it, you can also spend on and midterm rentals. Same thing. People still have a tenant training and feature as well. So we're going to talk more about look for local and reasonable Facebook pages, which is for the next slide. I'm going to do some of those that are complement. Go ahead. All that I know probably how concerned about this. I was it. But anyway, these are all very active, and I'm constantly saying I'm still looking for housing, or in town we have nowhere to stay. We're trying to do tree cutting service, or we're building roads, or we're utility workers, or whatever. Are looking for housing. They are going to these sites as well, and then I see people listing their property up. That's not all of them, but that's a pretty good list of what is actually going on in West. Either. Go ahead, Shona. All right. What's next? Property is set up. You've got it listed on all of these sites. Now you're starting to get in. This is where you want to jump in and start doing your background check and have your service set up ahead of. There are a lot of them. I've used both check and they work very similarly. Basically, what happens is you're going to get a credit score, you're going to get a criminal history, and you're going to get an eviction history from pretty much any of these background services. I will get the tenant name and email, and they occasionally will ask for a date of birth. Some do not. That's all the information I need to get from the tenant. I will initiate the background check for a key check, for example. I'll input that information. It will send an email link to the tenant and say, are you okay with this? And it will gather more data, for example, social security number, which I don't see, but the tenant will give that check, for example. And they will pay the fee. And the fee is somewhere in usually $39 to $49. And that background check can come directly to me within minutes. Very quick. And I see that full breakdown. Credit score, including, let's just pull your own credit score, right? I'm going to see late, if they have a history of being late, if they're up to date, what the score is. The criminal history, it'll tell you if they've got felonies, misdemeanors, whatever. And then an eviction history as well. And then use that to help decide. Now, be very careful about your local jurisdiction, because in some areas you actually cannot not somebody based on their score and their criminal and eviction. I don't know if that applies in this area, although in some areas where I'm at on the West Coast and where Shona's at, you do actually see you're limited in ability. I don't in the Western North Carolina. That's usually pays for this service. So now that your resident background check, you're satisfied that you feel comfortable renting to the person, the next thing I do is I create a space. And down here that I'm saying state, you can get rental agreements, leases online. They're all over the place. They're relatively expensive. But what you really need is you want a lease that covers all of the rules and regulations and all of the disclaimers and the addendums that are specific to your state. Same thing if you're in Virginia, if you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, it doesn't matter. You want a state. The public are out there. Again, I use a veil. I have used Tech and Turbo Tenant for leases as well. I prefer a veil. .co. It's easier personally for me to edit and modify and clone a lease. Want to use it again and again for your next tenant. That's my preferred, but they all work very similarly. I'll just input that I state is California, so it automatically downloads the California template. I then input all of relevant information, and typically they will allow you to modify the lease or make it very specific to your area. So I'm going to put in these are my quiet hours for this neighborhood. This is where you're allowed to park. This is the day of trash collection. You're responsible for taking trash out. This is my smoking policy. Things like you can modify. They'll cover your basis on all of the state. You can then modify it to put whatever terms and conditions you want in there. If you're working with a property attorney, I always recommend either have them draft a lease for you or at least have them review a lease like this to make sure that they're not seeing any red flags or there's any myth. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that attorney on hand. I feel comfortable using these leases and have not had any problem with them personally. But if you're one of those people that just really wants to dot all your I's properly, then run it by and you get the other party to sign it. Pretty much all of these online lease creation service enable DocuSign or some type of electronic signing. So once you create your lease, you then send it to your tenant. They review it. They can let you know, hey, there's a typo in here, or what about this? Should we put that in the lease? You have the ability to attach things like an inventory of your property if you want that to be part of it. A lot of people you do that so that you the guest and like literally, yep, my bedding was returned. Yep, I have 12 forks and I got all 12 forks back. You can definitely do that as part of your lease or as an addendum to you want to. Once they sign it, then it comes over to you and then you re-sign it and then everybody gets a final copy of the document. Once I get my state specifically signed, that's when I collect the security deposit. You can do it however you want, but my recommendation is that you collect the security deposit at the time you believe it's signed because that is what secures their booking for the property. They're saying, oh, I want to move in on November 1st and I'll give you the security deposit on November 1st. Just know that your property isn't really rented and secure until you get that. And sometimes they're booking weeks to months in advance. So you want to know that you have that one locked down because otherwise you have a fail company. That's personally how I the security deposit. I use a banking and bookkeeping platform called Lane. There are lots of them out there. I already named some of them. There's a bunch of them out there, and a lot of those give you the ability to collect and handle security deposits. I like to use Lane for rent payments and collecting security deposits because it is also my banking and bookkeeping platform. So I feel like it just integrates very seamlessly. You do want to hold your security deposit separate from your other operating funds for your property. Technically, you're not supposed to mix those funds because the security deposit legally needs to be available anytime you're required to refund it. So I just have a separate bank account set up for security deposits, and I find it's very simple to manage and it's clean and it's easy. And then I'm never at a risk of accidentally having spent those funds when it's time to refund somebody their security deposit if a refund is due. You don't need to do this if you only have one property, but it's now so easy. It's highly recommended, and that is to create some type of property management system or use some type of off the shelf property management system that includes automation to help simplify your management. For example, I use Hospitable. That's the platform that I use, and it has a lot of prepared messages that I can set up the timing on. For example, when somebody moves in, they get a welcome message saying, "Here's everything you need to know about your property." If you are using a simple or similar program for your short-term rentals, it's easy to do the same thing with the midterm rental and just modify the message a little bit so that you're including things that are relevant to your midterm that maybe were not relevant, like trash collection, for example. I send out a reminder weekly, like, don't forget, trash cans need to be out by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and then bring them back the same night. Those types of automation. Same thing with automated reminders when rent is due. This is something else that I like about Baselane. I'm really not here to plug Baselane, but I'm just explaining to you how I use it. It automatically sends payment reminders to the tenant, like they get it a week in advance and then a day in advance if they haven't yet seen it. And that prevents me from having to call them going, "Hey, I haven't seen your payment. Don't forget." So those automations can be super, super helpful if you're self-managing your property. There are people who specialize in managing midterm rentals. So if you don't have the time or are not interested in managing the property yourself, you can look for a company that will manage them. I will say that it is a different fee than managing a long-term rental, and a lot of long-term rental companies will say that they can do midterm rentals, but what they're missing is that hospitality orientation and just all of the that are involved in managing a midterm. This is the part where they look a lot more like short-term rentals than they do long-term. So just thoroughly vet the company and see if they have experience with midterm rentals and talk through that process and how they would handle guest requests and so on and so forth. We may even have some folks that are on the webinar now who do co-hosting for midterm rentals. And if that's the case, when you want to put a shout out there for people who are looking for somebody to manage their property, feel free to just drop your contact information in the chat. We want to make this as easy as possible for people. All right. And here's a pro tip for you. One good way to mitigate concerns about wear and tear on the property is to offer a midday cleaning. It's up to you whether you want to charge them for it or you want to just include it. You've already factored that into the cost of the rent. What I like about it is that not everybody keeps up with the cleaning. So this is potentially going to make it a little bit easier on your cleaner or yourself when you do the turnover. But the other thing is it's getting eyes on your property. So somebody's going in there and just making sure that their pet cat hasn't shredded your couch or their dogs are chewing on the baseboard. There's a leak under the sink. Nobody bothered to point out to you. Those are the types of things that a mistake cleaning can catch before they become a problem. All right. Down to the next. I'm realizing I took off my watch. We're at 10 o'clock. Okay. So I got to hurry now. All right. You be prepared to offer a video walkthrough of your space. You can literally, with your cell phone, take a video and have it available. It's often hard to show your property in person, and when people are coming from a long ways away, they want to make sure that it's real and legit. Unfortunately, there are scammers in this space on the host side, just like there are often scammers out there on the guest side, whether it's a short-term rental or a long. It's understandable that they want to know that it's a real place. You are a real landlord. They're getting what I think they're getting based on your photos. So having a video walkthrough, just driving your space and showing them the flow, it can be really helpful. We already talked about the mid cleanings. Great if you can provide local information and insight. They're probably not familiar with your area. That may be one of the things a little bit different right now with the disaster response that they may actually be from your area. But if you can provide this information, it's always appreciated. We already talked about the utility cap. And then for dog friendly properties, if you want them to clean up after their dogs, it really helps if you provide potty bags and let them know where they're supposed to put them. But again, if you can offer a pet friendly, not just dog friendly, but you could offer a pet friendly property, those properties can be few and far between to find. And so it's really going to help you stay put. And we've seen this play out time. All right. So that, I think I'm almost on time, Shona, a little bit
Right.
over.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's just transition right into you. And remember, we're going to do Q&A at the end. We'll go to Shona, then we'll go to Jon. We'll do Q&A at the end. And right now, I'm going to be capturing a lot of the questions and make sure that they're teed up so that we can address them during the Q&A. I'm going to do that while you're doing it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. Yes. My name is Shona. If you haven't met me, I'm an experienced midterm operator. I have a podcast. I coach students on this, but I really want to add a lot of value here. At the end, I do have a group, so you can join that. I do a lot of, free content around this, but insurance it's a lot of nuance to it. So I'm just going to try and really break it down and explain a lot of things. And on the end, we can do Q&A and cover that. So I think one of the biggest things is, let's just say where to list, right? Bonnie covered this, so I'll breeze through it, but just to underscore Furnished Finder, I get a lot of insurance companies looking in Furnished Finder. Just like Bonnie said, it's not just travel nurses. They're even saying that themselves, right? There are a lot of nurses there, which is great, but I get a lot of like temporary housing companies reaching out who work with insurance on Furnished Finder. So do not ignore that. The listing fee is like $150. It's well worth it. I've get a lot of leads from there. Again, Bonnie mentioned Zillow Rental Manager. Highly recommend it. You can check the furnish box. I get a lot of leads from there. Again, I be on Airbnb. Make sure your calendar is clear. You can do like a duplicate listing strategy. Maybe you have a short-term version, then you have a long-term, like midterm version of it, but just make sure that your calendar is open, because if you have your calendar blocked by spotty listings, you will not get found for midterm stays. And I know, Jon, you're going to talk about how you can sync your listings from Airbnb. That's another one. MiniStays, check them out. VRBO is back on the map. I kind of forgot about it, but I am starting to get leads from VRBO again. So these are like really high level plus MiniStays, but this is the top places. I'm going to really dive deep into how to list with temporary housing companies, but it can be a little overwhelming. These are just like the top places. So take a screenshot of that. And then I'm going to really cover the temporary housing databases. I explain the whole process. This is just an example of how you can get directly into their databases. They will look on the sites I just mentioned. They will also look in their own databases. There's kind of no rhyme or reason to it. You get leads from all of these places. So just take the time. And I'm going to provide my full list that I provide my coaching students with all. It has a huge list of all the places to list. Don't stress about that. And there's lots of ways to find them. So another thing when you're listing, and this is really nuanced but important, what happens is, and I'll explain the process, we want to let people know that we understand short term. We offer there's some really big keywords here. Like this is an example of a listing on Zillow, right? And I'm optimizing it. So I'm using these keywords that are going to make sense to people that are in need of temporary homes, right? I'm saying relocate. Again, I'm underscoring pet friendly. I can't emphasize that enough. You guys, like, charge a pet fee, charge pet rent, but pets are part of your family. They're generally responsible pet owners. Like, they're not just going to leave their pets behind if they need to be relocated, right? So people are so appreciative. So if you can be pet friendly, please do that. We're saying specifically designed for families in need of temporary housing, right? We're really underscoring this because a lot of times what happens is a temporary housing company will call a longtime landlord and they're like, what do you mean I only want to rent for a month? I only do 12-month leases. They do not understand the model. So by optimizing ourselves with these kind of keywords, we're letting families know that have been displaced. We're letting temporary housing companies know we understand the model. So again, the keywords are flexible stays, home repairs, relocation. We work directly with insurance companies and policyholders in need of temporary housing. So this is super important that you speak to that in your description, that you're letting people know that we understand this model again, because a lot of even short-term rental owners, like if you guys are transitioning, so just take a screenshot of this, make sure that you're really weaving that into your listing description, and that's really helpful. And I'll get calls like, "Oh, I see you understand the model," and they're just really appreciative of that because a lot of times people don't understand the insurance model, and I'm going to unpack that more. So that's just a little tip there. Again, this is more on optimization, right? On Airbnb, I'm always putting my company name, like at my company name is Senior and Porch Properties. We offer flexible stays for those encountering home repairs or relocation. Again, I'm saying we work directly with insurance companies and policyholders in need of temporary housing, right? And I'm putting this at the bottom of the listing, but again, I'm really emphasizing the flexibility and temporary housing. And oftentimes I can get people off Airbnb with this, right? Because they're going to go Google me. I'm going to cover how to do that, right? So you really want people to be able to find you, and you really want to emphasize flexible stays, pet friendly, all of those things that really helps you get those kind of bookings, right? So that's just a quick tip here. If you're Feel free to take a screenshot of that. And I like to list my kind of amenities, right? And the other thing I really want to highlight with Airbnb, right? A lot of times if you're doing the hybrid, right, or maybe you have a Airbnb that's really STR focused, really focused on nightly stays, just duplicate that listing and make it for an MTR listing and midterm rental. And you're going to tweak it so that it's really focused on what would an amenity be instead of vacation-y. It's a 5-bedroom home. It's family friendly. You have a dedicated office. You have a fully stocked kitchen. Like people that are looking for temporary housing for midterms are not in vacation mode. They're not looking for the game room or the Instagram wall. They're looking for really good internet, dedicated workspace, like family friendly, flexible stays. So we're really want to, if we are, or if you're going to transition to that, you really want to focus on that. Even with your pictures, your like listing title, instead of saying luxury vacation home, we're going to say 5-bedroom home, flexible stays. Are really trying to optimize for the longer stays, right? And so you can have 2 listings on Airbnb. So that's one strategy because again, if your calendar is any platform, if it's peppered with stays, you're not going to get found for longer stays, right? So it's really important to weave in these keywords. And I'll show examples of inquiries and you'll see the keywords that they're using, which is why we're weaving them into kind of our listing description. All right, this is like an example of a flyer. We're saying fully furnished midterm rentals. We're saying pet friendly monthly rentals, all the comforts of home, perfect for families, facing relocation, home repairs, remote work. And again, we're saying we partner with insurance and relocation companies, provide flexible housing solutions with lease terms ranging from short terms to extended stays. Again, you guys, because a lot of people, they don't understand this model. They're very concerned about, I don't want to book for a month. They don't understand it. And we are charging a premium for that. And it's okay because we're offering a ton of flexibility. So I really want to underscore that, kind of just weaving that into your descriptions. Again, it's really good to get found online. If you want to take someone off platform, you can put up a website. That's a little daunting. There's a lot of WYSIWYG stuff, but just setting up a Google My Business profile was one of the easiest things you can do. Helps you get found. Again, you're just optimizing. If you want to take someone off Airbnb to do a direct booking, this is the best thing you can do. I also highly recommend you can ask for reviews on it. With midterm rentals, thing I love about midterm, if you guys are coming from short term, is that reviews honestly don't matter. It sounds crazy, but I feel like you live and die by reviews in short term. Midterm, it's way less important. I still ask for them. I still think it's social proof. I think it's best practice after a guest leaves. If you're on Google My Business, ask for a review. Again, it's not as critical as it is in short term, but it's just really a best practice. And it's just, you might as well capture that. So that's a little side tip. So then temporary housing databases, and I'm going to explain this. Temporary housing companies partner with insurance companies because when a family files a claim, insurance, they are not in the housing business. They are all about insurance and they have adjusters. And so they're partnering with these companies. So take a screenshot. Like these are the really big ones: ALE Solutions, Alacrosity, Sedgwick, CRS. And again, I'm going to give you guys what I give my coaching students, which is like a huge list of all the databases. So you really want to take the time to put yourself into these databases so they can find your property. Because again, if you're on your Airbnb and your calendar's not open, they're not going to find you, right? So we can go directly to the source and list ourselves. So these are just like very high level places, and I'll give you guys the full list. Again, of course, always include MiniStays too. But again, this is just to highlight like high level where if you're going to pick the top places, Airbnb, Zillow Rental Manager, Furnished Finder, Verbo, ALE, Alacrosity, CRS, Cedric. There's a lot of them. You can even like Google temporary housing companies, use ChatGPT to find ones locally. There's all kinds of ways to find them. I will give you a list at the end of this that's really comprehensive. Just it's tedious, but it's really important because they will look in these places to find you. Insurance companies are motivated, right? And I know this audience that we have here has been affected by the hurricanes, right? So I'm going to cover how insurance works and the process. It's really nuanced, but hopefully I can unpack it and explain it. You have your insurance company like Allstate, USAA, State Farm, right? They have as part of their policy, this is like Section D, it's called additional living expenses or AOE. It is a huge industry and they have a budget for this. So if you are working with someone that has filed a claim, it's okay to charge a premium, right? You are offering a service, you're providing a ton of value. People are in need, but just know they have a budget for this and they are paying insurance and they should be using it, right? When someone files a claim, the adjuster comes out and they're saying, okay, you can't be in this home, it's not safe. They're often put up in a hotel and they're the funds for the temporary housing are coming from like the AOE, right? And those are the housing providers. So now I'm going to cover the 7 steps for getting an insurance contract, right? And there's a lot of nuance to this and we'll have time for Q&A, but first thing is a life event happens, or in this case, a hurricane hits. It's really devastating. These families are it's terrible. And they've never been through this before, most likely. So it's really traumatic. And we want to keep that in mind when we get these kind of leads. So something happens, right? This is an example, like I'm on the West Coast. Just an example, we had a huge storm last winter. This is an example of kind of an inquiry that I got. This was from Furnished Finder. They're saying we had a tree fall on our house. We're looking for a fully furnished short-term rental, right? And this is just an inquiry. And this to me, I can tell that they probably have an insurance claim. And it's helpful to know that for context because that's going to affect the price. Because oftentimes insurance, they're very they have big pockets, but they're budget conscious. They're going to start out with like a 1 or 2 month lease and just know they're probably going to extend. But if we're only doing a 1 month lease, we're going to certainly charge a premium for that. So you can assume when you get these leads, it's probably an insurance claim, or make sure you clarify that. All right. So then something happens, they're going to file a claim. Oftentimes they're going to be put in a hotel, right? It's not always, and it's always a little bit different. But most likely they're going to get put up in a hotel while they find more like temporary permanent housing for the families. So these are just examples of all the insurance. And again, these are not housing companies. They are not in the temporary housing business, right? They're all about insurance. That's their business model, right? And so what happens is these insurance companies, they partner with the temporary housing companies. One of the biggest ones is ALE Solutions. If you've heard of that, they just partner with them because that's what they do, right? And so they say, okay, they're going to set you up. Sometimes families go find housing on their own. That's fine. I'd say 95% of the time they're working with a temporary housing company, right? That's the process. Again, here's some big ones, and you can list yourself directly in their databases. ALE Solutions, Alacrosity, CRS, Sedgwick, right? These are some of the big names. There's a lot of companies out there. And what happens is they have, there's different titles, but there's some kind of relocation specialist that is working at these companies who has the contract with insurance, and they're going to reach out to you and say, I have a family, there's 4 adults, 2 kids, something happened at their home, we're looking for X thing, right? So I'll show some examples of that. Again, I think sometimes they reach out, you may never hear from them again. They're very busy, right? They're helping a lot of families. So it's okay to follow up with them. They're not ghosting you. They just have a lot of cases and they are nationwide, right? They're in all 50 states, right? So it's okay to follow up with them. I think a lot of times they reach out and maybe they found a property. They don't have time to reach back out to every person they've contacted to say, oh, we found a property. So just be helpful, be a resource. I always let them know, hey, like I'm in Portland, Oregon. Consider me a resource. Like I have a great network. We all have networks, right? We're all part of communities. So if they reach out to me and I don't have a property, I go out to my network and say, hey, I'd love to help this family out. So always be a resource, always be helpful. They're a wealth of knowledge. You can ask them questions. Just really position yourself as a resource, like how you can help them, right? Here's another example. And this is, I think, Furnished Finder. So they're saying this traveler's inquired about your property. So they're saying they're telling you I work for temporary housing, which we know is one of the ALE solutions. We know that's an insurance claim when they're saying temporary housing, right? That's just a keyword. Just know that, right? And they usually give you this information. They'll tell you the amount of adults, the amount of kids, and they're displaced in the area and need a rental for 1 month. They always start out with a month or two, which is just the adjusters don't want to commit to like a 6-month lease. But they always extend. We all know that contractors take forever. If there was, I'm sure hurricane damage takes quite a long time to fix. They might only have approval for 2 months, but they're most likely going to extend. And therefore, again, we're charging a premium for that short-term lease, right? And so this is just an example of an inquiry that we're getting, again, through Furnished Finder, right? So when you see this, it's just like a clue. It's probably an insurance claim, right? Here's another example, and this is from ALE Solutions. We're saying we have a local family that has damage to their home. Again, these are all the keywords we're looking for. I found this rental in our database, right? This is an example because I listed myself and all my properties in their database, right? So they're finding you in different ways, and we really just want to get found. We want to optimize ourselves to get found. So that's why it's really important to go directly to ALE Solutions. And I've asked them, like, where do you find properties? Oh, we look at our databases. Sometimes we look on Airbnb. So it's really different. You want to be where they're looking, and they're giving the address. Like in this case, they're saying we're looking for a 6-month lease with the option to extend a month to month. And that's pretty typical, right? They will book for a couple months or even a month. And so I don't book people behind them. And that's different with Midterm because I want to give them the option to extend. So I'll check in 30 to 45 days out and say, hey, do you need to extend? I really want to accommodate that. And they're always going to give you like the adults, the cats, a dog. I've gotten inquiries for a duck and chickens, and I'm okay with it. Like, I just charge a pet fee. I protect myself. And again, these are families, they're homeowners. They're really responsible. They're in a bind. So don't be afraid of pets. I can't underscore that enough. We can do some Q&A about that at the end. So again, the relocation specialist, they're going to ask you all these questions, right? And they will ask you. So don't feel like you have to know all the answers. They're going to want the available date, the month. They will always ask you the monthly rate. It doesn't matter what's listed. They're going to ask you that. And if your rate is like X amount, but they want to start with a much shorter stay, it's okay to add a little more just to accommodate for that insecurity and that flexibility, right? They're going to ask us if it's furnished. And Bonnie was right. Most of the time they're looking for furnished, but they will often accept unfurnished, and they partner with furnishing companies so they can take care of that. So if you have a long-term rental, put it out there as a midterm, and they can do it in a couple days. They're really fast about it. It's no problem. So and sometimes they're even looking for unfurnished because they make a profit on the furnishing, right? So I'd say 90% is furnished, and we can charge a premium for furnished. So I recommend that. And I think it's just a quicker move in, but it does not need to be furnished. They're always going to ask lease terms. I recommend just say like a month minimum. Yes, we want longer leases. Typically they're 3 to 6 months, but they might start out with a month and then they're going to extend most likely. So just be flexible, be accommodating. Like, we are in the service business. How can we help them? They're going to ask if utilities are included, right? And Bonnie said this can be a negotiation. I usually include them, but if you're getting back into like rates, you can say, how about I don't include the utilities, so it's all negotiable. And they're going to want to know about fees, right? They're always going to ask you in some form of these questions that might not be the same, but they will just ask you and you just rattle it off. They're going to ask about an application fee, which I always charge. They're going to ask about security deposit, and they're always going to want to know, is it refundable? Clearly it's refundable. And I will say, just the way I run things with security deposit. So if it's a traditional midterm renter, say it's like a traveling nurse, my deposit is 1 month's rent. It may be high, but that's how I run it. I come from like a long-time landlord perspective, and for me, that's security. But with a temporary housing claim, I always make my security deposit a lot less than what I normally would because I'm charging a premium, and these families generally, it's an unexpected move. They were not planning on moving. So say my rent is $6,000 for a 1-month lease. I'm going to make my security deposit like $2,000 because I know that it's a family that wasn't expecting to move, and That really helps you get approval, like adjusters like that, the temporary housing companies like that. It's easier on the family. So just know that if it's an insurance lead, you can even make it less. So definitely make your security deposit. Just keep that into consideration when it's an insurance thing. So I just really want to underscore that. It's a family. They were not expecting to move. They may not have the reserves, right? So that's one thing. They're going to ask about a cleaning fee. They will often ask about an admin fee, and look, there is a lot of back and forth. It's more paperwork. I think it's okay to charge for that. They're asking you, just charge an admin fee. Like I charge $250, right? I don't charge that if it's a direct booking, say from a nurse, because it's pretty straightforward. There's not all this back and forth, all these parties involved. I Pets are great. I love them, but I'll tell you, they pee. They leave a lot of hair, right? So just accept them, but charge a pet fee, right? That is non-refundable too. That's going to cover all your extra cleaning costs if you have to like change your sheets or whatever, right? Order a new couch cover. I just had a turnover and the couch cover is pretty much toast. I'm like, well, that's why I charge a pet fee, right? I charge a pet rent per pet. And then any other fees, these are typical fees. You might have other fees, and they're going to ask you the best contact info, how to reach you, how to do like a tour of the property. Geez, I'm getting low on time here. Okay, I'm going to try and speed through this. And then we're going to, so the relocation reaches out to you or the family. Usually it's the relocation specialist. Then you're going to negotiate price, and it's just let them know you can work with them. Sometimes I'm adjusting my pet fees, or just let them know that. And usually there's a little back and forth. But you email it to you, and I do it on length of stay. If they only want to book a month, there's a premium for that. If they're willing to say, hey, we're going to commit to 6 months, I'm going to take that into account, right? That's a lot less turnover for me. So just know that it's a little bit nuanced. And that's why sometimes we are charging more of a premium with insurance, because they're starting with really short bookings, and that we need to make sure that we're covering our overhead because we might have more vacancy. So that's generally how I does a tiered pricing structure, right? Just so you know. So there's no hard and fast formulas on what you can charge. And we don't want to price gouge that we do. The reason we're usually charging more is because they're coming in with a 1 or 2 month booking. That's a lot of insecurity for us. We're offering a ton of flexibility. So generally it's based, their budget is and you can ask them. They don't always like to give you their budget. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Can't hurt to ask, but generally the family needs to be put up in a comparable property. So if it's a 3-bedroom, they're going to want a 3-bedroom, right? They're going to want a fenced yard. Whatever their home is, they're going to need to be put up in a comparable property. So beds, baths, the neighborhood type, the estimated home value, and each policy has benefits based on their insurance plan. It's always going to be a little bit different, right? And we want to make sure the price works up for multiple extensions, right? Because they do have a fixed budget for temporary housing. So how much does insurance pay? I covered this before, but it's coverage D is loss of use coverage, and it just covers all those additional costs for temporary housing. So really rough napkin math. And again, every policy is different. There's really no blanket way to say this, but just for reference, right? Say the homeowner's home was worth 400,000, 20% of that is 80,000. So then divided by 12 is 7K. So we might say, okay, maybe 5 or 6 is reasonable, right? Again, that's just really rough math. Again, we're not trying to price gouge, but we are offering a lot of flexibility. We're offering a fully furnished property. Utilities are generally included, so we need to cover our costs, right? This is just more on ALE, right? It's covering all these things. I'm going to try and be speedy here, but these are more examples of inquiries that I'm getting. Sometimes they're giving me the price, which is helpful, right? Sometimes they don't. In this case, they're saying unfurnished is X, furnished is X, right? They're giving you the terms. They're always going to say pets, like here's a lizard and a bunny, right? I would be open to that. I would just charge for that. And here they're saying ASAP. And when they say ASAP, you guys, they're not going to move in tomorrow. There's an application process is at least a week. So even if you have a guest in there, like just say, yes, it's available in a week. They're not going to move in the next day because you need to screen them. You need to go through the whole formal process. So don't let that freak you out. There's always a process to get them in. They need to get approval. The family has to see the property. So here they're saying 1 month and their budget is 9K, right? And here, this is a booking for like 28K. It's a longer stay, right? That's an Airbnb, right? This is an email. This is an email, and this is through Airbnb, right? So we're getting leads from all these different places, which is why we really want to list ourselves on them. Yeah, I'm gonna try and wrap this up. This is, again, an Airbnb listing. They're saying, "Hey, this is my key global accommodations." We have say they're saying families displaced and they need placement for these dates, right? And they're saying, "Would you hold it for 24 hours?" And they need to get adjuster approval, right? And that's always the adjuster will always need to approve the budget. That's why there's a lot of back and forth, right? So this is a great booking. They're all a little bit different. Again, more kind of examples. They're saying we're looking for this location. It's very zip code specific, so make sure to always give your address. Like Airbnb won't give their it's hidden until you book, but they need the zip code and the address so they can map it out and see how close it is. And again, they're saying 30 days. That's super common. They're always probably going to extend, so just price accordingly for that. So again, family, and then so the family will generally, so a lot of times with midterm, traveling nurses will not see the property. That's why I have video tours, I have virtual tours that I just link to and they can see that. With insurance claims, typically they're gonna wanna see the property, they're gonna walk it. That's because they're local. So I highly recommend you be there in person, you walk them through it, you say, "Hey, we can accommodate you." Like, I've done tours where they needed a crib, they needed an extra office, we moved beds around. So just be accommodating, be flexible, let them know that you can help them out with what they need, because they won't always ask for that. Let them know that if they're interested, they need to move quickly because you've had a lot of interest. And there's a lot of approvals, so it takes time. We don't want them to miss out, right? So just be there, just make sure you can accommodate them. Again, this is another example of this was a family with a new baby and they wanted a crib. So guess what? We ordered the crib. I think it was like Amazon over into some overnight thing had it set up. Another family might want a desk, right? So just really accommodate that. Make sure you let them know you can accommodate that. So then the family moves in. And the temporary housing should be as close as possible to the original home that was damaged. Comparable home, you want to have an open calendar, be pet friendly. Enclosed fence yards are really critical. I get so many requests for that. Accessible homes, like one level is ideal, the least stairs the possible, or even having one bedroom on the main floor is really in demand, a bed and bath. And they're usually going to see available ASAP, right? That within a week or so, right? And for the right property, they're willing to wait. All right, that is my insurance thing. So I'm going to hand it off to Jon, and I'm going to stop sharing, Jon, and then you can like hopefully screen share.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So let me
All
know
right.
if you have permission. Let's see.
Let me see.
Okay. I just changed
Said it's
permission.
not turned on. I just sent you a
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I just want to start by saying thank you for having me on, Shona and Bonnie. I'm really excited to share about MiniStays and what we do a little bit different and what makes us, in my opinion, better than some of these other listing platforms that are out there. So I'll start by giving you a little bit of background about myself and what led me to create MiniStays. I've been investing in real estate for over 10 years now. I bought my first duplex when I was 22 and did the whole house hack thing. I lived on one side, rented out the other. Then I spent a couple of years chasing my dream of playing professional football. Did that for about 3 years, and I always knew I was gonna get back into real estate. So, got back into real estate full time, became a realtor, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I got into midterm rentals. Somebody had told me about travel nurse housing, midterm rentals, and it really piqued my interest, but I didn't really know where to start. So, I think like a lot of you, my first question is, "Okay, how do I advertise this? How do I get the word out that I have a midterm rental," right? So somebody had told me about Furnished Finder, and obviously the big one is Airbnb. Everybody knows about that. So I listed on Airbnb. Somebody told me about Furnished Finder. Went to the site, and I was like, "Really? This people are using Furnished Finder to find housing?" Because it looks a little clunky. It looks a little outdated. But I listed my property on Furnished Finder, and within a week, I had a tenant. I was a travel nurse, and my rent went from $1,800 a month as a long-term tenant, and now I was getting $2,500 a month for a travel nurse tenant, and she stayed there for 3 months. It was, I think, cleaner than when she moved in. She took really good care of the property. It was awesome. I was hooked on midterm rentals. I started converting all of my rentals into midterm rentals, and I was hooked on the concept of midterm rentals, but I just felt like there was something missing as far as the platform goes. Because like I said, I was brand new to it. I didn't know where to list. And I asked these nurses that reached out to me, how the process goes. Like, how do you just usually do payments, and are there lease agreements, and what should I be asking you? The thing. So I was asking the nurses, and from their standpoint, they have to message 20, 30 different hosts at a time on Furnished Finder because they don't always get responses. Calendars aren't updated because bookings aren't done on the platform. So if you're not familiar with Furnished Finder, how it works is that you pay a fee to list your property on the platform, and then it's Craigslist once you get your property listed. So it's a free kind of marketplace. A guest will reach out to you, and then everything's done off platform. If you want to do lease agreements, background checks, collect payments. So I do a lot through Venmo or Zelle, and that gets tedious, reminding them every month to make their payments and tracking that down. For a couple of years, I had just Post-it notes on my wall to just keep track of all of my reservations and who's moving in, who's moving out, what their deposit was. So it's really complicated to track. So that's the nice thing about Airbnb's platform, is that they have all of that. They do reservations on the platform. It's really easy to know where your reservations are. You can do your cancellation policies, everything through the Airbnb platform. But the problem there is that when a guest is looking for a house, they have to navigate calendars through weekend bookings. So it's really hard for users to find a continuous 3-month stay if that's what they need. And then the fees are just extremely expensive. So it makes it almost unaffordable to a lot of guests that are looking on Airbnb, because if you're looking to get, maybe $2,700 a month in rent, that guest is now going to be paying $3,200 after all the Airbnb fees, which cancels out a lot of your guest pool. So with MiniStays, our idea and goal was to combine the best features of Airbnb and best features of Furnished Finder to create one platform. So I'll go ahead and give you guys a little tour of the website, and I'll just try to highlight all of our key points, and hopefully it stays under about 10 minutes to get through it. So I'll show it to you first from a guest point of view. Right now I'm logged into my guest account. So this is on the very front page of the website. So I wanted it to be as clean and easy and user-friendly to understand. So as soon as you get on the front page, okay, properties are listed here. It's listed by monthly rate, must be a monthly rental site. So we wanted to make it user-friendly from a guest standpoint when they're browsing listings. So the front page just has a few listings on here. It tells you a little bit about MiniStays and how we operate, our target market. And then let's say, so if I click search and wanted to go to the search page, I can go here. And then we also added this nice little feature that tells you when the property is next available. So that's the other thing. We're always adding new features. We are a relatively new company, but we're adding features daily. Bonnie can attest to that because I showed her this platform about a month ago, and we've changed a lot of things since then and just focused around user friendliness and making it easy on the user. So let's say I wanted to check out this property right here. So from the guest point of view, we wanted to focus on trust, transparency, credibility, and user friendliness. So when you're checking out a property, it's okay, what am I paying? How much are the fees? Don't BS me and make me have to go all the way to the checkout page every time, like Airbnb, to figure out what I'm going to be paying each month. So you can browse your pictures, a little bit more about the property, your bio, and then you can select dates that you're looking for on your calendar. Let's say I want to stay from November 4th to February 12th. So then you can see here that the rent is $2,000 a month. Your security deposit is $1,000, and you only pay, the guest pays the security deposit up front. So as soon as they make the booking, that's when the host has paid the security deposit, and you get that to yourself as the host. And that can coincide with whatever your cancellation policy is on the platform as well. So we opted for a low fee approach versus Airbnb, but we allowed hosts to collect a security deposit, and that's your security for damages, versus Airbnb is going to have air cover, right? So that's their insurance coverage, which is why their fees are so high. They charge 10 to 15%. Our fees are only 2%. So our fees are a lot lower, and your coverage then is your security deposit. So you get that up front, and then down here, the guests will see their payment breakdown by each month and payment day. So we automatically pull payment from the guest every 30 days, and they can click this to expand. They see their rent is $2,000. The guest service fee is 3%. So from the guest side, it's 3% or 5%. depending on their payment method. If they use a bank account, it is 3%. So 3% of $2,000 a month is $60. Total rent on November 4th is $2,060. Every 30 days, they get that payment, and then it automatically prorates for the last month. They might have stayed only 12 days in that month. So their rent is $733, and then their service fee is that. So then you can go through, and you can also, the guest can see all of your utilities that you offer, or amenities, not utilities, where it is on the map, and then also property reviews. Oh, actually, I'll show you what it looks like on the checkout page too. If a guest clicks reserve, it takes them to the checkout page. It doesn't book their property until they, uh, a lot of, so a host can require guests to either make an inquiry, or you can have instant booking too. Most guests in this, or most hosts in this space, are going to want to have an inquiry so that they can properly vet the tenant. You can run your background checks, lease agreements, all of that before accepting a booking. So the guest would insert their payment method, and then they would inquire to you, and they can type in their occupation. Their bio right here would show up and be sent to the host as well. And what's the reason for your stay? So they'll give a little bit of info about themselves that you'll get with your inquiry. And then you'll get all of this information as a host, why they're staying, and then you can start your communications on what you require before they can book. And then, like I said, as a host, you can select your certain cancellation policies, and then it'll tell you about the security deposit policy as well. Like I said, as a host, you receive that security deposit. So just make sure you're responsible with it, like Shona said. And we expect that you return it to the guest minus any deductions within 10 days of the lease or contract ending. So similar to Airbnb, you can hop back and forth between your host account and guest account. So now I'll show you what it looks like from the host end and point of view. So here is my reservation, or my host dashboard, where I can see all my listings. I can see all of my current reservations. This is my actual account. So you can see all of my current guests here and what it looks like from this perspective. And you can also, so if I click manage here, I can see details of the reservation, and I can see when their payments are coming in, how long they've stayed there, and when their next payments are coming. And she's been there for about 155 days so far. I can see all of my messages here. Again, we were doing some testing with this guest. She was very accommodating and helping us test things. That's why she has a bunch of these messages. But when she makes the inquiry, it'll show up like this. This is an old one too that we were doing some testing with. But it'll show you all of the reservation details that they inquired about, and then you can go ahead and approve or decline. So I went ahead and approved it, and then she completed her reservation there. You can edit your profile. This is your payments tab. So I would go in here to manage my payout details. If I wanted to change my bank account, and let's say you get an inquiry, but you want to vet the tenants and you want to go through your application process. We partner with TransUnion SmartMove to do our background checks. So we have that incorporated here too. If you want to do a background check, you just click this button, it takes you right here, and then you can just create your account and automatically send the background application to the guest. They fill it out on their email, and it's really easy and gets sent to you within like minutes of them completing the application. So a really cool feature that we came out with just a couple of weeks ago. So we're still working on a few tweaks with it. You can now connect all of your Airbnb properties to MiniStays in under 30 seconds. Whether you have 2 properties, 20, 30, 50 properties, you can transfer all of them over just with a few steps here. I've already connected my Airbnb account, but then I wiped off the properties that are associated with it on my MiniStays. I'll show you how the connection process works and how fast it is. You just connect your Airbnb account. I'm already connected on this browser, so I don't have to put in my login information. So it'll automatically pull up my listings. Great news. My MiniStays and Airbnb are now connected. Take me back to MiniStays. And then by the time I get back to my host dashboard, those properties should be there. Okay, they're right here. Like I said, we just rolled this out 2 weeks ago, and we're still working on a few tweaks here. I don't charge $306,000 a month. So there's a few decimal places off here. So there's just a few of those things that you'll have to go back in and edit, and you can do that by clicking manage, click edit. So I'll take you through what it looks like. This is whether you're listing a property or you're transferring an Airbnb property. This is what it looks like to complete a listing. So this one is this was a duplex. Hit next. All of this stuff came over. I do allow pets though, so I'll do a pet fee of $250. Make that a one-time fee. I require a background check, and no, I don't want instant booking. Make sure all your amenities are accurate, because we don't have all of the same exact amenities that Airbnb has, so everything might not transfer over perfectly. You can also edit your location bullets if you want to say, oh, we're 10 minutes from the hospital, we're 10 minutes to downtown. You can add different bullet points here. Add your property instructions, monthly rates. I'm going to lower that a little bit. I don't know what I charge for this one, maybe $2,300 a month. I don't do a cleaning fee usually when I do midterm rentals, because they're that long, and I just bake it into my monthly rate. But some people charge $100, $200, just whatever you're comfortable with. My security deposits for all my properties for midterm rentals is $1,000. I've maybe only had to keep maybe $200 from one guest I've had like 100 guests so far. So a lot of my guests are usually very responsible, and I don't really have to touch their security deposit. So I usually refund that. You can select your cancellation policy, and if a guest does need to cancel, their contract ends, they need to leave early for whatever reason, it'll automatically trigger payment according to your cancellation policy. Then I have an advanced booking day and turnover days of 2 days each. I can go ahead and save my listing, and boom. So now see how it went from incomplete to nothing there. So now my listing is active. Something else that we just added, Bonnie hasn't seen this yet. So like I said, we're always adding new features. You can now sync your Airbnb reviews. So right now we don't have a pop-up yet that says successfully synced, but if I go to my listing now, and then, all right, I think it might take a minute. So I'm gonna try that again. All right, you see how my reviews loaded in right here? I got 4.8 stars, 5 reviews. Those are all transferred in from Airbnb. Okay, it might just take a minute. It was working earlier. All right, I'm getting a page unresponsive error. Could be my internet and being connected to Zoom. But your property reviews should show up here. So your Airbnb reviews will transfer over. And then if anybody stays and completes a booking on your MiniStays account, they can go to your listing, and they'll have a review tab on their reservation in their dashboard, and they'll be able to leave a review too. And that's where it'll show up. And then if somebody wants to, my computer's overheating right now. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to show you, if you click on the host icon, you can see the reviews here too. And then you can also see like more properties that are hosted by that property owner. Very similar to how Airbnb structures it. You can see all of the host properties, and then the reviews are in their host profile as well. And then, oh, you can go in your calendar and you can sync your Airbnb calendar. So right now we are working on an easier functionality of doing this, but right now we recommend selecting like a year out, and then you can click sync your Airbnb calendar. So then this will sync any blocked dates that are in your Airbnb. So if you see the red dots right here, those are blocked in my Airbnb account. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, how MiniStays work. Like I said, we try to incorporate everything, all of the good things about Airbnb, good things about Furnished Finder, to create one platform. I think we've done a pretty good job in doing that. Feedback has been amazing from a lot of the hosts that we've had on here. We've also had quite a few bookings already take place on the platform, and a lot of the bookings that took place were hosts that told us that they actually found guests on VRBO or Airbnb, and they were able to get them off platform. They had them booked on MiniStays because both parties were going to save on fees, and they just liked the MiniStays platform better for midterm rentals. So they had the guest book through there. So that's been really cool. I'm not encouraging you to go steal business from those companies, but that's what's been happening. And then word of mouth has been spreading, and more guests have been looking on MiniStays for their next midterm rental. And then we also had quite a few bookings from people that were affected by the hurricanes, because that was one of our missions and why we rolled out a little bit earlier than we initially anticipated. We saw just an opportunity where we were able to help people that were affected by the hurricanes. And because we're a platform that's focused on monthly furnished rentals, a light bulb just went off. Like, we have an opportunity right now to help a lot of people. So we started a nonprofit called the MiniStays Community Project. We started raising money, and we've been helping displaced families find properties that are available, and we've been paying through our donations on their behalf for their housing. And one of the families that we just recently helped out was a father and a daughter who were staying in a shelter. They described the shelters as like staying in a gymnasium on cots, and their shared bathrooms, shared showers, shared bathrooms, and it's just not a fun experience for them. So they said that everybody's just waiting around for these $700 FEMA checks, and nobody's received them yet. And even when they get $700, that's not really going to do a whole lot. It's not going to help put a roof over their head or anything. So we've been very fortunate to make an impact on a couple people. So if you're in a position to at least just share our mission and GoFundMe, we're still looking for properties, and there's still a lot of people that need housing. So we're just trying to do what we can to help out in that regard. Otherwise, that's our platform. That's what we've been working on. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And feel free to list your properties on there. Let us know what you think.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Just if you want to pop a link to that nonprofit, that'd be great in the chat for people to find it. I shared the
Yeah,
MiniStays link if that's the right one too. I'm definitely jumping on after this call. I love it.
awesome.
I
I just,
just I just dropped the link to the community project in the chat. So it's there for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
and
That's
John,
where you're done support. Yeah.
I
Go
want to
ahead.
say thank you for including the background credit check, because that's so important to me.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That really
Yeah.
sold me. Just side note.
Yeah. And another big feature that we do plan on adding and want to add as soon as possible are lease agreements. So state specific lease agreements where it will take all of the reservation data and automatically input that into the lease agreement, and then make it editable where you can add certain details that you want to add.
That's
Yeah. I'm really excited about this. And it's funny because Shona and I were just talking about the reviews the other day, because so many platforms don't utilize reviews. So the fact that you've upgraded that so quickly and brought that feature in, I think is great. And I think it's just, you guys have done a really good job of visualizing where you want to go in the future, and then implementing those things very quickly. With some other platforms that I utilize, they've got a laundry list of upgrades, but the rollouts are very slow. The implementations are really slow. So I give you guys a lot of credit for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I've noticed that with other platforms, they keep sending out emails like, we're going to do this, and it still hasn't been there in a year. So we're, we're working around the clock with our developers on like little tweaks, little bug fixes. Next week, we might have a completely new set of features. So if you see something you don't like right now, keep checking back, and we're going to continue to improve.
Absolutely. All right, let's open it up for questions and answers. What would be great is if you went to the hand raise feature, Shona. I usually use Google Meet, and it's right down at the bottom.
I think people can just, I don't think we're going to get inundated. People want to just chime in, or maybe, let's
Do
see.
you need to unmute them, or can they unmute
I think they
themselves?
can unmute themselves. You can go to
Okay.
React, and then let's see, React.
Yep, there's the raise hand at the bottom
Yeah.
of the emoji bar.
So Bonnie, I know there are some questions in the Q&A. I think you got
Yeah.
to all of them. We could just review those too while we're waiting.
Yeah, because I know not everybody follows the chat, but I did attempt to go in and answer the questions. Many of the comments were that my volume wasn't working well. Sorry about that, you guys. It never fails. So hopefully it's a little bit better. The first question was for stays over 2 weeks. Are they not expected to clean while they're there? I think that's something that you want to talk about in your lease, or at least when you're having a conversation with them, and say, we do expect you to do basic housekeeping, and we provide you with the supplies to do that. You can't very well ask them to do the cleaning but not provide anything in the way of supplies. It's a little unrealistic for a person to go out and buy a mop and a vacuum and all the things. So I provide all of that, as well as I mentioned the starter toilet bowl cleaner and countertop cleaner and shower cleaner and some Comet for the sink, that type of thing. So it's definitely not required to do a clean. I will say, if you are renting to construction workers or to any type of, especially during the disaster response, I've got tree trimmers, I've got utility workers. There's going to be a lot of dirt and whatnot dragged in just because it's on their shoes, it's on their clothes. They're not trying to harm your property, but it's just going to happen. In that case, you really might want to have a discussion with them about including a cleaning service for them. They're working extremely long hours. They don't really have time to do it. And if you really want to make sure your property stays in tip top shape, I would recommend that you do that. And you can either bake it into the monthly rate or weekly rate that you're charging, or you can charge them by the clean, or you can give them the option to opt out if you want. It's really however you choose to do it. Okay. How are you getting word out that your rental is available for disaster relief workers to the areas? I shared that list of local and regional Facebook pages. Every region has a version of that. You just need to look for it. A lot of those companies are on those pages because there's other information. It's not just about housing, right? There's other information that's happening there, like businesses that are reopening, businesses that have needs for certain things, travel restriction updates, boil water advisory updates. All of those things are happening on those local and regional pages. So everybody's going to them. If you look, they have very high usage numbers. So I would recommend that you search there for the companies and the individuals that you see interacting there. You can go as far as to private message them, but just putting your property and its availability out in those types of formats will really help. And you can usually identify one or two individuals or groups that are spearheading the effort in your area and reach out to them specifically so that they know that you're available. I know in Asheville specifically, as a realtor, his name is Tyler Kuhn. He's very active in that area, and he's been doing a lot of volunteer work. And one of the things he has is a spreadsheet of available properties. And so you just reach out to him, let him know that your property is available. You'll get added to his database. It's a little wonky right now because, as you can imagine, everybody's trying to help and everybody's doing their own thing to fill the gap and make sure that they're sharing as much information as possible. It'd be great if there was just like one big database and everybody knows to go there. In times like this, when everybody's trying to upright a solution, there are going to be a variety of ways to do it. And I find yourself spending a lot of time getting yourself listed in a lot of places. It is worth it, in my opinion, particularly if your property is sitting vacant. The other thing you may find is that you get leased up very quickly and you don't need to pursue those other sites, at least right away. You can take time to fill that in later as you go.
I just want to add to that too. It's really important for temporary housing, go to their databases and list yourself directly, because if you're an Airbnb, your calendar's not open. It just do get yourself. I've heard stories. I've told people that, and they got a booking the next day. A temporary housing company reached out. We're helping families, so I will send out my full list that I give my coaching students. Just take the time, list in those places. It's super important, and that's another way to get found.
Absolutely. Somebody mentioned be sensitive to scent and chemicals with your cleaning products. And I think that's a great suggestion. There's unscented versions or natural versions of most products nowadays, and they work just as well or better than a lot of others. So think about that as well. I thought that was a great call out. Somebody was asking about camper or RV rentals. We often see camper and RV rentals in the midterm space, not just relative to the disaster. I know it can be a really popular choice for people who are single travelers. They might be looking for that smaller place to rent. Sometimes they're in like a scenic or picturesque area and they like that. And so, yeah, definitely encourage you if you've got a camper or an RV that can be set up, particularly if it's a self-contained unit. But right now, during the disaster response, people are just looking for a warm, dry, safe space to stay. So if you've got that, I wouldn't hesitate to offer. But can we get the PowerPoint afterwards? We're definitely going to send you a link to the replay. I think we're going to send out the slides themselves, and then we've got some other leave behinds that we're going to send with you. The FAQ. Shona mentioned a couple things that she's going to be providing. So you're going to get a packet of stuff.
Yeah, and you'll get the Zoom recording too, so if you wanna rewind it or watch it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And someone asked about having your own site as backup. Yeah, that's great. I don't think it's a priority. I would say list yourself in all the places we mentioned, MiniStays, all of that, insurance, housing. I would say the biggest thing is if you wanna create something for branding, get yourself set up with Google My Business. It's totally free. That will help you get found. I would say I would do that over a website because if you do not optimize your website, it is just a brochure site. It's useless, frankly. So I would say that do all those things, Google My Business. And then someone else was asking, Shirley's asking, why can't we do Airbnb.org as they advertise? I'm not quite sure what that question is, but maybe, yeah, you can clarify that. I don't know a lot about Airbnb.org. Bonnie, do you know much about that?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm actually looking for the question. If she's still on, maybe you could jump on and ask the question. I'm not.
Shirley's saying they said it. Yeah, Shirley, you've been messaging me directly. I don't know. Yeah, just maybe put
Oh,
your message in the general chat. Bonnie, maybe just speak to it generally. I don't know if they're waiving fees on that site or what their aim is.
yeah. So that is my understanding. They are reducing the platform fees. I don't think they're completely free, um, but they are waiving some of the fees. And so it's going to be a little less expensive for both the portion that you pay Airbnb and the portion that the guest pays Airbnb. Just a note of caution with Airbnb. John has mentioned it, Shona's mentioned it, I've mentioned it, and that is that when we talk about moving people off the platform, that's what we're talking about. You have to be very careful when your traffic comes from a platform like Airbnb, they expect the booking to go to them. And I understand that. They have massive marketing budgets that they put in place to support their business. They have all of this expense with their customer service team, with upwriting their tools that are available and so forth. So they're very proprietary about those inquiries that come from them. So never, ever say when you are talking to a guest through Airbnb or any other platform, why don't you come book with me over here because it will be cheaper? And probably the one exception to that is if you're hearing from them via Airbnb, it's okay to suggest that they use Airbnb.org because it's still within the Airbnb family. But I know that they have an algorithm that they have created searching for those types of communications between host and guest, where the host is saying, go to my direct booking website. It'll be cheaper. I can offer you a discount there. Go to MiniStays. That's cheaper for both of us, that kind of thing. Never, ever do that because you could find yourself kicked off that platform very quickly. But typically, once you accept that initial booking, like Shona was saying, sometimes people will book for a week or 2 weeks or a month. After that time, you now have a relationship with that individual. You're probably texting each other. You have a communication channel. That's sometimes best moving to a different platform. But if it comes from a platform initially, I would just suggest that you be very cautious about how you correspond with them via that platform.
I
Jennifer,
wanna add to that
uh
quickly.
yeah,
When I showed that slide, you saw me dropping my company name in,
yeah,
Cedar and Porch Properties. Savvy people, yes, and I agree with everything Bonnie said. Yes, they have a huge marketing budget. We don't want to necessarily go off platform, but if people are savvy, they will find you. I've
mhm,
said, hey, you can reach me at my property name. I'm not suggesting that. You never want to say, don't type out your number, but they will find you. And I've done that successfully. And I think it's okay, but just judiciously, but just put your company name in there, make sure they can find you online. So that's just a little add on there.
yeah. Company name or my property is called Woodhaven Cabin. All of my properties have a name, and so I will use that name over and over again. Savvy people also know to do a Google image search, and they will find anywhere that property image pops up, and they can pursue you that way as well. So there's a couple different ways to let people know that you're available other places. Jennifer had asked if anybody could recommend a video walkthrough service. I just use my phone to make a video. Shona had mentioned that she uploaded video tours to YouTube. I'm not aware of a platform per se other than Matterport, which does the 3D versions. Do you know of one,
I'll
Shona?
add to that, any professional photographer these days, they generally offer Matterport and video tours, and they are higher quality. Like, I used to do it myself with my iPhone. Let me tell you, I really switched to having that done professionally. I like to give as much information as possible. And also there's a caveat of if it's a nurse, that's really helpful. They're going to see it, right? Here's the video tour, the virtual tour. It gives them a ton of confidence, professional photos, all of those things. Like, John, I would love to know if you guys are going to add that to the site. Because I feel like that's missing on Airbnb. But with insurance, they're always going to want to see it in person. And that's the difference. But I recommend as much as you can provide. So I highly, any photographer will do it for you. And then Matterport, you generally will have to host yourself because those links do expire, but you can figure that out. Yeah. John, if you want to chime in, I'd be super, that's a feature request.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like a lot of people ask for, whether they reach out to you on Airbnb, they want to see a video tour, or they reach out to you on Furnished Finder, they want to see a video tour, and figuring out how to incorporate that into your website. But the thing that I get stuck on is quality control with videos. Some people do it on their iPhone, or they have an iPhone from 10 years ago and they're like walking through and it's choppy, and how beneficial is that? And then, so if there's a way to figure out that aspect of it and then figure out where to put it, like, do you put it in the pictures or do you have a separate kind of tab for video? But right now you can send a video in our messenger. So you can go to your messenger and you can send attachments. So also with, if you had your own lease agreement, you can go in our messenger and send that attachment. We don't have the algorithms, at least yet, as for Airbnb to exchange contact information. So right now, if you do have somebody on MiniStays, you can exchange contact information. Like everybody else, we are spending money on customer support and marketing. So if you do a request, we hope that you stay booking on MiniStays. But right now we're operating on a trust basis at that standpoint. So you can still communicate and send leases back and forth, videos, and open communication. So
Yeah. Quick note, like on Zillow, you can add like a Matterport link, and that is quality control because it's professionally done. So that might be something to
yeah.
consider. Yeah. But yeah, I got it. All right. I would love to know we're getting on time. Everyone's biggest takeaway, what their learning was. It's really helpful for us as presenters to know and if we didn't cover something, please let us know. And I'm going to drop in the links again. I have a Facebook group people can join. John has MiniStays. Bonnie, let us know where people can join the MTR group. But this is really helpful for us to know what your takeaways were.
Yeah, and I'll drop the invite link to the MTR Connect. And I mentioned it at the top of the meeting, and some of you are from our MTR Connect group. We have a virtual meetup every Friday. We do it 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You are welcome to join every Friday or just drop in casually. It's not a huge group. It's for MTR hosts or aspiring MTR hosts. We try to keep it somewhat small so that it can be very interactive and participatory. We encourage people to be on camera, share their properties, help answer each other's questions, place where people can go for support, networking. We've helped a lot of people troubleshoot their properties. A lot of times they'll say, look, having trouble staying booked. I don't know what the problem is. We'll all review it and provide suggestions. It's been very helpful, I think, for people. We're also sharing resources. I know we've been able to do referrals to one another's property because we're all in other groups. And you might have somebody who's, hey, I need a place to stay for 30 days in Rhode Island. And darn if we don't have somebody in Rhode Island in the group when we refer it to them. We share resources like tools, we do demonstrations. We bring people like Jon onto the call so that they can share products that are out there and services that are out there. We're not ever trying to sell anything in the group. It really is just for connections and networking. I think that's what's making it very popular. So you're welcome to join that. And like I said, I will drop the meeting invite link in the group channel. So go ahead and find it there. And then Shona, maybe we should put up our contact slide because I think we're at the end of our content. And this gives you the ability to reach out to any of the three of us individually. So if you're interested in joining the MTR Connect, just go ahead and reach out to me. There should be a QR code. Took me all day yesterday, but I got my QR.
Bonnie, I didn't have a chance to add that, so just drop your
no
link in
problem.
here. I've been dropping links in just like I think
Okay.
it's probably just cut and paste that. And we'll include all this in the follow-up, all of that stuff. But yeah,
All
like
right.
again, I have a Facebook group. I do live streams every Tuesday. I really talk about a lot of MTR stuff. I do coaching too if anyone needs more hand holding, but I've shared everything I know, and I'm going to share my full list of temporary housing agencies, all the places to list, including MiniStays. But seriously, I've had students just list and get a booking. You just never know, but get out there, list yourself. It doesn't have to be a perfect listing. Feel free to post your listing in my group. I can give you some feedback on it if that's helpful, or join the MTR, right? This is a great community. Midterms are great. And I think it's such a win because we are making a little more money. We are helping families, and I love that. And people are not there for vacation. They're there for a place to live and be. And so there's a lot of value in that, I think. And Jennifer, yes, I have like a huge list of all the places that we're going to temporary housing, insurance companies. I'm going to share that link to a Google sheet. You can just copy it and use it. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. If anyone else wants to chime in, let us know the value you got from this. We really appreciate it. Yeah. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. And I will follow up with a replay of this and all of those resources and include the MTR Connect information too. Awesome.
Jennifer's asked, were you going to share a list of sites to list our property? Not the way you just answered, Shona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And don't get overwhelmed by it. I like really tried to prioritize it, right? Like the top things, don't get overwhelmed, but just put on a movie or listen to some music and just have your listing description, your photos, and just cut and paste into all those places. And I will just say, I've never been through a hurricane, but just as an example, last year there was a really bad storm, like trees fell everywhere. I'm still getting leads from that. So sometimes there's a really big trickle effect, right? That's a huge disaster you guys went through. So this could be an ongoing thing. So don't feel like you might not get a lead for a while. Everyone's scrambling, right? So but position yourself to get fine and to help families, right? And to keep your property occupied, because we all know how stressful vacancy is. It's the worst part of being owner operators, right? So yeah.
And I think for all of us who own properties in the affected area, it's really important to not only share the messages that, gosh, this has been really disastrous, it's really overwhelming, because we do tend to focus on the negative side of this, but places are opening back up, and the ones that are opening back up desperately need tourism. They desperately need businesses to come back and to be supported. So I think we can all help ourselves and help our communities by constantly sharing those recovery stories and remind people like, we are still here. We are still on the map. Please come and visit us. It's still a beautiful place to be. Obviously, be very careful with the areas that are under heavy recovery mode, but I think the media is focusing a lot on the negatives, and I see lots of people posting photos that may be days or weeks old. It's just surprising at how fast the recovery effort is happening in a lot of areas, and we want people to know that we're still there and open for business. These communities are going to need that. So you can help too by just sharing the good news about what's going on too. Jon, you had a question for MiniStays. How many bookings are being booked through your site? And is it nationwide or is it mostly in certain region?
Awesome. Good questions. So we are nationwide. MiniStays, yeah, we're in all 50 states. We do have plans to expand internationally eventually too. So if you haven't really caught the gist, we are a relatively new company. We were in beta phase for about 2 months and just attracting hosts to come and test out our platform. And we have about 1,000 properties on the platform right now. And how many bookings are being booked through our site? So we've only been live for about 10 days. So we've had a few bookings during our beta phase of hosts coming over. And we had a couple of bookings through our hurricane initiative. And then we've had a couple of bookings since we've been live even too. So we've only been live for about 10 days. So this is the progress we've made so far. We feel like we're off to a pretty hot start. There's more properties being added every day, more bookings being made every week. So right now we're probably at about 20 to 30 bookings. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but we just opened our doors about 10 days ago. So we haven't even fully launched our marketing campaign. And the more properties we get, the more guests will come follow those properties.
Yeah, and this is the question we get all the time. People don't love listing their properties on Airbnb necessarily for longer stays for all the reasons that we talked about so far. They find Furnished Finder very frustrating because it's wonky and there's a lot of manual work that you have to do. And so I get asked all the time, is there anything else? Is anybody working on an alternative? And so I was thrilled to be able to bring it to the MTR Connect and say, actually, I know somebody who does, and they're leaps and bounds above the competition because I have seen extremely beta versions of what John's company has rolled out, as in it's still via spreadsheet, basically. I put a lot of faith in what they're doing and just seeing their progress. And I know that they're well backed and well funded. So I'm expecting to see good things. And I think this is one of the nice things about the MTR Connect is that we have people bringing us stuff all the time. And so we're going to roll it out to you, to our members, as quickly as we can, get it in your hands so you can decide if it's for you and also provide feedback. I know he means it when he says he's open to our feedback, and that helps inform the site that we later end up using. Love to have that from everybody. All right. We are a little over time. Thank you, everybody. I think we should call it. Do you have
I
any
just
parting
want to
comments?
reiterate any
Yeah.
other feedback, any comments. It's super helpful for us. If anyone wants to chime in and let us know your takeaways were, we really appreciate it. And again, just like share, we all put in our time here. If you can share MiniStays, share MTR Connect, let's all support each other. This is community, right? So yeah, just last little thing.
Absolutely. And if you want to put our contacts line up, I'll put my contact
Okay.
info in here since you didn't get the QR.
All right. Yeah. Everything's in the chat. I'm going to share really quickly.
Do you know if the chat notes will come through with the replay?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't actually know. I'll have to look into that. Yeah. But I
Okay.
did. Yeah. But needs to make sure to, yeah, I don't know. But I think we got to most of them. But yeah, if you want to, you guys can scan. So this is my MTR community. I do live streams. I have a ton of free content. I also coach students if anyone needs more hand holding. Bonnie put her stuff in the chat. Definitely MiniStays. I'm impressed. Like Jon, you're rolling out really cool stuff. I love that you're building in the screening stuff. That's like my biggest pet peeve. And yeah, so I'm going to go. And I love how easy it is you really should be on Airbnb. I know we all have mixed feelings, but just get on Airbnb and then just sync it with MiniStays. Like there's really no reason not to be on MiniStays. Like that's so easy. So
Mhm.
just do it. Yeah. And Airbnb is still the biggest, search engine in this space.
Yeah, so it's good from a marketing standpoint to throw it on Airbnb. You still could get some bookings that way because you are going to have to price your listing accordingly based on the fees that Airbnb is going to charge, just so you can, come out where you need to be. But there's still people that are willing to pay the fees. So it's worth it to be on
Absolutely.
all platforms.
Yeah, it's still the biggest player for sure.
Hey, Jon, I know we're at time here, but I just thought of a question. How is your algorithm like? How are you promoting listings or new listings? Are you guys working any kind of stuff like that? Because that's always the game we're trying to do, right? Is get found, get listed, or is it so new that
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so we just started rolling out our marketing plan, but it is pretty extensive and it's going to take a little bit of time to get through all of it. And another thing with like bookings, how many bookings do we have right now? We've been live for 10 days. The average turnover of an MTR is about, you know, 60 to 90 days. So it is going to take some time to get some turnover and get some more traction as far as bookings go. But yeah, we're marketing on all social media platforms, paid and organic, SEO, Google searches, paid and organic. We're building relationships with insurance companies, staffing agencies, nursing agencies. I have a friend that works at, I can't remember the name of it, but one of the largest travel nursing agencies. And he manages between 40 to 50 travel nurses at a time, helping them find housing. So he's marketing MiniStays throughout his entire network of people, throughout his company and other companies that he's worked at. So building relationships at companies like that, universities, and then we have a Facebook group as well, monthly furnished rentals, host and guest community, and we focused it around MiniStays. and it's got 106,000 members in there. We actually purchased, and we did that because we purchased the group from somebody that I got tired of running it, and I bought the group from her. It was actually a group that started in 2014, and it was for travel nurse housing. And so it has anybody from travel nurses, and we opened it up to all travelers. It has anywhere from travelers, insurance placement specialists, staffing placement specialists, and then host. So there's 106,000 members in there. So we're going to start utilizing that more to market towards. What else am I missing here? We do have a full-time marketing specialist on our team. So a lot of that's in her arena, but yeah, our marketing strategy is pretty extensive.
That's amazing. I actually was asking about your internal algorithm. If I put a new listing up, how are you prioritizing listings? Is it like, what's that algorithm? I can ask.
Oh, so right now it's like new. Are you saying in the search results?
In this, yeah, in the MiniStays or yeah, search results, because that's always we're trying to
Gotcha.
get. Yeah, I'm curious. If you, I don't know how much you can share, but I'm
Yeah. So we try to work the algorithm in a way that quality listings are shown first. So ones that have highest reviews will show first, and then with quality photos. So we recommend 10 on the site. And then our algorithm can pick up whether it's a professional looking photo or a camera phone thing. That camera phones have come a long way. So like they can't still look nice, but it'll pick up if it's like a quality photo or a pixelated photo. So we try to put those towards the front, proximity to the location, obviously. So there's a few other little tweaks in there, but I relied heavily on our developers for pushing the best properties forward.
So what the takeaway as host is good photos, which I preach anyway, and good photos. Anything else we can do proactively to be like featured or higher up in the results?
Not really quality listings. If you can get reviews on there from your Airbnb, that'll help too. Description. If you just put one sentence, it's not going to be kicked up as high. But if you have a thorough, it doesn't have to be crazy long, but it has to be substantive. I think we recommend over 500 words or something, which isn't a whole lot. Amenities, if you don't have any if you don't have a complete listing filled out, it's going to be kicked more towards the back. But if you have all your amenities put in there, if you have location bullets, that's going to be a higher emphasis on MiniStays.
Okay, I love the fact that you prioritize good photos because I am I can't even just express how important that is. I
I
miss
know,
so
looking
many
on
good
Furnished Finder too,
listings.
I'm just like so I'm perplexed of like how many people
Just oh, don't use your
they
iPhone.
don't even have like sheets made or anything, and
There's
the
like
pillows like
stuff.
in the
There's
middle.
like junk. The photos upside down. The toilet seats up. Like oh my
Yeah.
god. I just
Uh-huh.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I'm gonna have to jump off. I think I know Shona knows this, but I'm actually driving to my first leg of my trip back to North Carolina any moment. To come and it's back in the car. I got to be in Boise tonight, and then I should be to my new home in North Carolina, by Monday. So I'm gonna have to go, but you guys feel free to keep going. And we will be sending out follow-up information. And Jon, I've got to follow up with you too. I I just imported my property from Airbnb, and I need to get my Furnished Finder or my MTRs on your site as well.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Let me know whatever you need.
I'm gonna jump off, guys.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right, bye bye.
Um. Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah. Safe travels. I see one last question about corporate leasing. It's just any lease, just state specific. That's really important. It might be a company name, right? But that it's really just a state specific lease. Yeah. All right. You guys, thank you so much. If there's any other like last minute takeaways, we always love to get that feedback. It's really helpful for us as being in the industry, what people are looking for. So thank you for that. Jon, thank you so much. I'm really excited about MiniStays. Yeah,
Thank
really
you.
cool. I can't wait to have you on the podcast to dive in more.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm excited too. Send me
Awesome.
that booking link.
Yeah, totally will do. And I'll get this link out soon. I'll be on YouTube. So and please share it. This is meant to be a resource. We really want to help people. And yeah, so I think that's it. Unless there's any last minute questions, any last minute takeaways. I know we went like way over for anyone that hung on. Thank you. Awesome. John, thanks for your time. I know this was a chunk, so really
Yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
problem. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right,
All right,
cool.
we'll
All
see you
right, I
later.
think that's it. Thank you. Thanks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.